Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Sri Aurobindo Society, Alsur, Bangalore, I welcome you all to today's talk. Before we start the talk, we'll have a 30 seconds silence to invoke the mother for our today's talk. As part of Sri Aurobindo's 150th birth anniversary celebrations, we today have a talk on emotional and mental health by Dr. Soumitra Basu. A small introduction about Dr. Basu. Dr. Soumitra Basu, MD, DPM, is a consultant psychiatrist dividing his professional time between Kolkata and Pondicherry. He has been working to develop consciousness paradigms in health and psychology from Sri Aurobindo's perspective. He is one of the editors of the Journal of Integral Health, Namaha, one of the founder directors of Sri Aurobindo Bhavan, Sri Aurobindo International Institute of Integral Health and Research, Pondicherry, director of Institute of Integral Yoga Psychology, Auro Shakti Foundation, and honorary secretary of Meera Vision Trust, a public charitable trust dedicated to Sri Aurobindo's vision. He has been serially presenting chapter-wise discourses on the life divine and the ideal of human humanity from the psychological perspective. He has been exhaustively working on the psychological insights in integral yoga on a long-term research project initiated by Dr. A.S. Dalal. He is a senior faculty in social work, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal, and extramural faculty in Indian psychology at Calcutta University. He has authored numerous articles on the psychological, psychopathological, and social perspectives related to Sri Aurobindo's thought, and his books include Integral Health, Integral Education, the Caste System of India, and Aurobindian Perspective, Sri Aurobindo's Political Life in Bengali, and Consciousness-Based Psychology, which is there. Dr. Basu is a devotee of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and is part of the ashram in Pondicherry. We, on behalf of the society in also, thank him for accepting our invitation to deliver the talk today in spite of his very busy schedule. Thank you, sir, and I invite you to initiate the talk.
This is going online. So without the corner mic, it will be easier. Very good morning to you, and especially thanks to Mr. Bhattacharya who remembered me, because I had given a talk here many years back. I think twice I had talked here, but it was many years back, more than 17, 18 years back. And he remembered me and he called me, so I couldn't resist my coming. And we'll go to the subject, which is a very dear subject to me, a subject on which I work, on mainly constructing a psychological paradigm from Sri Aurobindo's perspective, from Sri Aurobindo's thought. So you know that Sri Aurobindo didn't write one specific book on psychology, So for psychological work, what we have to do is we have to construct it from all the numerous seed ideas, numerous thoughts, numerous experiences that he has scattered everywhere, he along with the mother, and together with it, we have constructed a very coherent psychological, what you call, paradigm. It had started long back when Dr. Indra Sen in the ashram, he first started this work actually. Dr. Indra Sen, he was the first person who was allowed by Sri Aurobindo to go to speak to the Indian scientific community about Sri Aurobindo's psychology. So at that time, he had not framed any technical term for that psychology, but afterwards he began to use the word integral psychology. He began to use that word. And unfortunately, afterwards, Ken Wilber, who was deeply influenced by Sri Aurobindo, took up that integral psychology, that term, and patented it. And you see that, but he patented it in a way that it means 100. It is a synthesis of 100 different systems. What Wilber said is nothing connected to Sri Aurobindo. But Wilber is he follows Sri Aurobindo. You see that Integral Health, which was published by Sri Aurobindo Society. When I had sent him that manuscript, he had told me that I am still a student of Sri Aurobindo. He had written to me. But then he suggested to use the word integral yoga psychology, which Madhusudan Reddy have been using and which Dr. Dalal started to use. But then integral yoga psychology was also used. People were getting a bit confused. So then Dr. Dalal, with whom I've worked very closely, Dr. A.S. Dalal, you know that he was in the ashram, and then he was sent. He went to USA and did a double PhD in psychology, and then he came back. And so he has written a very landmark book on Sri Aurobindo psychology, which is known as Towards a Greater Psychology. So he didn't use any term. And then the word global psychology was also used by some people. We have now coined, me and my friend Michael Mayevich, with which we are bringing out a book, entirely new book, which is very comprehensive on Sri Aurobindo psychology, so that it can be used as a textbook and a reference point as a textbook for anyone interested, because there is a great demand for it. For so long, all these works that were so long were just scattered articles which were put in book form, but which we have now put forth in a very comprehensive book form, though all the things we have not been able to put in one book because it will be too heavy for the readers. So at least the major part is coming out, which is in the Ashram Press just now, where we have coined a term, me and Michael, we have coined he's a psychiatrist in Boston, and he used to run the Boston Sri Aurobindo Center, a very good devotee, one who understands Sri Aurobindo very, very deeply. One of the very few people in the USA who understand Sri Aurobindo very deeply, other than Debashish Banerjee. And we have coined the term consciousness-based psychology, CBP. So that is something that will be coming up. Anyway, this is just an introduction to that work that we are doing, and which is in great demand. People are wanting to know many things about it. People are wanting to know because there is a vacuum, in the world of thought. And Sri Aurobindo, it is a high time that Sri Aurobindo has to be introduced. Yes, please come. And so we start today's topic, not in the usual way, just to give you an idea of the usual things about mental and emotional well-being. These are things of experience with which you are all working. All your life you are working with your mind, your emotions and all that. So that's all thing. But I'll be telling you certain things which you can pick from Sri Aurobindo, new things, and which you can start thinking and working in that way. Now see, we say that we are children of immortality, Amritasya Putra, which is correct. We are Amritasya Putra because the sanction for evolution, the sanction for our manifestation came from the highest source, from the divine. So that is why, of course, we are children of immortality. But you see, there is also the Semitic religions, they say that we are born sinners. We are born sinners. We have been born as sinners. So paradoxically, it is something, it has a partial truth in it, with which I will start. It's not a fundamental truth. The fundamental truth is that we are children of immortality. But the partial truth is also, which has been developed by many Semitic religions like Christianity, that stressing on the sin aspect, that we are sinners. That also has some amount of partial truth in it. And what is that truth? That you see that from where creation starts. Sri Aurobindo explains that creation starts from the inconscience. And the unconscious is what? It is where the superconscious has come down. The superconscious has come down, down, down. And when it has come down to the unconscious, it has changed completely. It has changed completely. So what was light in the superconscious has become darkness there. What was truth has become falsehood there. What was good has become evil there. So what was joy has become suffering there. All things have become changed. Everything has become changed. Everything has become changed into the neither opposites, into the what you call the ultimate opposite that is possible. One of the things have been changed there. So what has come down from above? All these things in the superconscious, they have come down and they have changed into the unconscious. And in this unconscious which contains all the opposite of what should be perfect, of what should be ideal, evolution is going to start. So evolution is going to start from mud. Evolution is going to start from mud, isn't it? Because everything is mud there. In that matrix, everything is opposite. There is nothing that is truth. Everything has become raw. Everything has become the opposite, where you have got darkness, falsehood, and everything. So it is from that mud that things will start. And because the things are starting from that mud of that unconscious, where all things are opposite, so when actually evolution is happening, all the stains of this ignorance, this darkness of this ignorance, they are also coming up. All the darkness is also coming up. You see, so evolution is starting from a matrix where everything is in opposite, everything is a flux, everything is the opposite of what is there in the superconscious. Everything is stark opposite, and from there something is being formed. Something is being formed, something amorphous. Na? Everything is amorphous. Something is being organized. And you know, when you need something, when something is being formed, then something has to hold it. Na? Otherwise, it will fall apart. It's so amorphous. So you need a framework. You need a framework of around which things will get organized. And that framework is also from where it has been derived. It has been derived from that all those negative things itself. So the framework is also constructed from something negative. Around that framework, something is now coming up. Something is evolving. Of course, that evolution will start. That dikkat, that decree that came from the superconscious. So that is why we are Amritasya Putra. But evolution is starting from all the mud. So in Christianity, when they say that man is a born sinner, there is a semblance of truth in it. You see, everything has a partial truth. Everything has a partial truth. And then they are coming up with a scaffolding around a framework or around a scaffolding. It is rising, and that scaffolding, which is made from the same material, is going to become our ego. That scaffolding is going to become our ego. So something that is coming up from below, made of all negative elements around the scaffolding, which itself is negative, and it is coming up, and that is and is constructing what we call as the outer personality or the outer being, which is known as personality in psychology. In psychology, what is studied as personality is studied as the outer being. You know, when we talk about Sri Aurobindo's psychology, we immediately don't use the word personality, we use the word being, because the being has got a perspective of personality. It has also got a dimension of impersonality. Impersonality is also there. It's not only personality, you can also have a dimension of impersonality. So better to use the word being. So that's why we use the word being. So there is an outer being, and this outer being is studied all over the world. In Western psychology, they study this outer being as personality. And this outer being is made up of all these negative elements that have come from below, and they are around the scaffolding, which is the ego. And the problem with this is there, because everything is negative there, everything is in disharmony. So in the outer being, everything is in disharmony. Everything is in disharmony because it has come from the matrix of disharmony. And the ego has come from there, which is holding all the three together. What is the ego? In ego, if you look for the word, what is the meaning of ego, then you will find in different dictionaries, in the Google, you will find different meanings of it. But for Sri Aurobindo, it is very specific. What it is, you see, what has come from below, the mind, emotions, and the physical consciousness, which is represented in our body, our vital. Sri Aurobindo used the word vital as a noun. Sri Aurobindo was the first person to use the word vital as a noun. Vital contains our emotions, our passions, our life energy, and then our mind. Now, these three things are not in harmony with each other in the outer being. So if the mind wants that today I will meet Savitri very seriously, the body can come up with a headache. Or if your emotions, no, they want that today I will be very, I will be very emotionally involved. I will do something which is purely emotional, but the mind can come up with some weird suggestion and say, nah, some critical idea and say that, no, you can't do that. Or the body might want to do something, your mind might, or your vital might not support that. No? Your body might want to do exercise, but your emotions might be filled, you might feel drained out, or you might not find the motivation to do an exercise. So always there is a disharmony going on between the mind, body, and the vital. And who is trying to, still we are surviving because somebody is there who is trying to balance these three. And who is doing this balancing act? That is the ego. Ego is trying to do the balancing act between the mind, body, and the vital. Ego is trying to balance these three. But because the ego is made from the same components, like the mind, vital, and the physical, so it cannot do its work properly. It is, in statistical terms, I would say, it is skewed. It is somewhat skewed in its function. It is, it cannot do its work properly. It is very biased. You know, it can be biased towards the mind. Like intellectuals, they have great intellectual ego. That what I think is true, my idea is true. Or the vital, dynamic ego. I want to do something very great. And then Sri Aurobindo's very great explanation of all the chaos today's world you see in every sphere of life, whether in individual life and collective life, political life, and everywhere. You see, Sri Aurobindo's basic contribution is, he says that there is no synthesis between the knowledge and willpower. You can have great knowledge. You don't have the willpower to implement that knowledge. You can have great energy, willpower, but you are not backed by adequate knowledge. And that is because we are starting from the unconscious, where knowledge and willpower have become separated. You see, in high Satchidananda, knowledge and willpower are together. In Satchidananda, it is said, Sat Chit Ananda. Sri Aurobindo modified Satchidananda, said Chit Shakti. Chit Shakti. So Chit Shakti is consciousness and force are together, simultaneously there. You see, without consciousness, there is no force. Without force, there is no consciousness. And down in the atom, in the electron, you see, electrons know that they have to rotate. What if the electrons today decide not to rotate? They're not deciding. No? The whole thing will collapse. They are not rotating because within that energy, there is an incipient knowledge. Knowledge and energy are together there at the bottom. If you go up a little bit in the animals, you see there is an instinct. Bee knows it has to do its beehive. The ant knows that it has to construct its ant hill. Only the human being, they have become totally separated. Knowledge and willpower have been totally separated. It is our task in spirituality to bring them together, It will not come together as it is in this manifestation where we are in this mental life. We have to go above in high in consciousness. Actually, in the supermind, they will become synthesized. So when people ask me about the problems of this country and all, of all politicians and all, I say it's very difficult. You can't say about this person or that person. If you look from Sri Aurobindo's perspective, you have to understand in the basis of knowledge versus will. You see, one person cannot have a total knowledge. You have to have, if you are running a big organization, institute or a country, then you have to pull knowledge from different sides. That also might not be enough because you have to have higher type of knowledge, not the ordinary knowledge. I'll come to that. But you see, this knowledge and will, you see, there's a basic difference between mental and emotional health is that our knowledge and will are not synthesized. And that is because we have come from the inconscious. And then the ego is trying to make some compromise. It cannot make a compromise. You see, it is very biased. And then with all sorts of, you see, intellectual ego, still you can work on the intellectual ego. With the intellectual ego, you can still do something. You can still, that intellectual person can do sadhana and can get above his, what you call intellectual bias. Very difficult. Unless one shifts to the inner mind, very difficult. But still something can be done. With the vital ego, the vital ego, very difficult still. If you follow Buddha's dictum, go above desires and all. This is what Buddhism, this is what ordinary religion, they have done with all their ethical codes. What they have done with the ethical codes was to control your emotions. All the ethical codes were designed only to control your emotions. So with that, you have still tried to maintain some semblance. But physical ego, You see, mental ego, you can still do some intellectually you can surrender your intellectuality to the divine. Little bit you can work on your intellectual ego. Vital ego, you can still get above your desires and go achieve something. Not fully perfect, but something you can achieve, that you are not having a bragging too much in your life. Physical ego means which is holding your physical substance, which is holding your physical consciousness. You see, physical ego is very, if you see sportsmen, sometime back I was seeing one after another, I was seeing very famous sportsmen, people who were the captains of, for some years back, they were captains of the biggest football teams of our country. And then I saw that when they had illnesses, they had broken down completely. I said, then what is the use? We say that for good health, you should go to do physical exercises. And these people were captain of East Bengal, captain of Mohun Bagan, and they have broken down completely. Then I understood then why the mother's concept of integral health. Because only exaggerating your physical health without what you call bringing your mental health, your emotional health in line, in consonance, in harmony with each other, you cannot achieve much. You cannot achieve, but it is not possible. So you see, great sportsmen, they become greater patients than other patients. If you see the histories of all the people, all the big sportsmen who fall ill, I've seen a football player. If something happens to the toe, their whole world collapses. They feel that I have finished. But when mother was working, now this is just an introduction, but this is something very serious. Mother was working to get off her physical ego. The physical ego is holding the physical consciousness. And she told a point came when she said, I am wanting to abdicate the physical ego without disrupting my physical consciousness. You see, without disrupting her physical consciousness, she was wanting to get rid of her physical ego. And a point came, she said, it could be this, it could be that. That means she would have died. It was such a serious thing. She was not being able to do it because she thought that something might happen. And then she had to invoke the destructive power of Shiva. You see, Shiva destroys. What does Shiva destroy? You think Shiva is not destroying buildings and cities and civilizations. Shiva is destroying psychological. That is what is to be understood from what his mother is saying. When we say that Shiva is the destroyer, we have to see it in the psychological sense, the sense of consciousness. Shiva was invoked to destroy the physical ego so that the physical consciousness in mother's body would go on acting without that disruption, without getting disrupted. So you see, for us then, it is so difficult. For mother, she had to invoke the physical ego, Shiva's power of destruction. And for us, you see, is it easy? It is very difficult. It is very difficult. And then also the mother said, and both Sri Aurobindo and the mother said that people who say that we have got over our ego, when they have actually, if they have actually succeeded, if they have actually really succeeded in getting over that ego, something still remains, a residue, a residual impression remains. Sri Aurobindo called that substratum ego, a residual impression of something floating, some sense floating. And mother said that many people, when they got to their substratum ego, they thought they have reached the Purusha, they have reached the Brahman. They were so satisfied. So many people say throughout history who are doing sadhana and who have said that I have got the Brahman, I have got the Purusha, might be they have got rid of their ego and got to their substratum. It is so difficult. I'm not telling this to demean others. I'm trying to say ego has been dealt. It is a very difficult subject. I can speak on the whole day on what Sri Aurobindo talked about the ego. It is a very difficult and a very subject by its own merit, only the ego. But the ego is so difficult. Ego is so difficult. So we cannot fight in that way to get over our ego. For us, fortunately, mother has given us an alternative. And that alternative is much less risky. What is that alternative? That when this evolution was happening, you see, from the inconscience, from this mud, from the opposite things were coming up, no? So that they were all jumbled up with each other. Behind, you see, evolution occurred. Why evolution occurred? Because everything came down from the superconscious. You see, many things descended from superconscious. That also again is a very different subject. Actually, you should have once a workshop to understand all these things one by one, because very difficult. That is many things descend from above. There are parallel lines of descent. Many things descend in a parallel way. If you read Nolinida's works, I think Nolindra's best work ever produced in his life is an article called Lines of Descent of the Consciousness, where consciousness is descending around several lines. You see, when superconscious descends, it becomes the opposite in the inconscious. So the like that, the avatar descends, many things descend. Now, from this Sat Chit Ananda, from Chit Shakti, you see Sat Chit Shakti Ananda. What is Sat? Sat is the existential poise of reality, the existential poise of reality. Sat descends to become an essence of everything, and in that poise it is known as a self. When Sat descends, is an essence of everything. Essence of everything. Essence of everything is actually the self. Chit Shakti descends as the consciousness force. No? Chit Shakti descends as the Chit, which forms the planes of consciousness, and the embodiment of Chit Shakti is the mother. The mother's universal mother is the embodiment of Chit Shakti. Chit Shakti, the evolution, all these things are happening. And Ananda is a value aspect. Because of Ananda, everything is happening. Now, Sat, when it descends, it produces many things. While it is descending, it is descending. It will produce a certain thing which will afterwards become the Jivatma. And then down, it will go down, and it will descend as a spark. As a spark, it will descend into the inconscious. Now, the beauty is that the spark cannot be deformed. When truth, light, Ananda, they descend from the superconscious to the inconscious, they become opposites. But the spark is a spark. Spark will remain a spark. No? It will not be deformed because it's just a spark. And that spark brings that message, that decree, that start the evolution, start the work of evolution. It brings that message. And this spark also grows along with the outer being. Now, the outer being is going and this spark is going. Through many lives, this spark is going. This soul spark, it is a soul spark that is growing. And it will, at one time, it will gather many experiences and become the psychic being. And so you see the psychic being which is going behind, and the outer personality, the outer being is in front, but that is behind. At one time, it can become so formed that it can come forward. It can come forward. It can replace the ego. If we fight with the ego, we'll fight for several generations, several lifetimes. We will not, you see, mother, if you see the mother's example, we will get defeated in this life, we'll get defeated. At least the next 10, 12 lives, we'll get defeated. It's better, mother has given us this option that go to the psychic being behind. Now, mother has not only given that option, she has activated it. You see, because she has activated the psychic being, you are open to the mother, then her grace will act on the psychic being. And this is the only reason we don't have initiation in our ashram. No? All ashrams in the world, they have initiations, mantras, dikkhas. In our ashram, we don't have diksha because mother's force directly can go and touch your psychic being. This is the grace that has been given to us. Now, if that psychic being can come forward, it can replace the ego so that things will become more harmonious in the outer being. But I said that the mind, body, and the emotions are not in harmony. But it cannot come directly forward. The psychic being is in the fourth dimension. So at the end, we'll do a little bit of two exercises we'll do, if you permit me, 5 minutes, 3 minutes to 5 minutes each. One to understand our inner mind and want to understand a little bit how we go to the fourth dimension. The psychic being is in the fourth dimension. It just cannot come forward. It just cannot come forward and replace the ego. So between the psychic being and the outer personality, which is all that we know, there is another level of being. Sri Aurobindo calls that the inner being. Whole of Sri Aurobindo psychology starts from inner being. If you want to do sadhana from Sri Aurobindo's perspective, you have to start from the inner being. All of Sri Aurobindo's work starts from the inner personality, from the inner being, which he also calls subliminal personality. It is the inner being which is behind the outer being. You see, it was not known. It was known before also, but it was known in fragments. It was known in what we call glimpses. Sri Aurobindo organized it into structure. And that inner being goes above into the superconscious. Below it goes down into the inconscious. And around it goes down, it goes out into the cosmic consciousness. So above into the superconscious, below into the inconscious, and around into the cosmic consciousness. And from the cosmic consciousness, all things enter the inner being. And from the inner being, little by little, things percolate into the outer being. You see, this is the beauty, that from the cosmic consciousness, you see, all things come to our inner being. They don't come to our outer being. Impossible. Outer being is so fragmented. Who will receive it? From the inner being, little by little is percolating into the outer being. And Sri Aurobindo said that trickle that happens, that is enough for lifetime's creativity. People who are great artists in the world, great creative people, with great creative outpourings in their life, they have just got a little trickle has come from the cosmic consciousness, from the inner being to the outer being. And how from the inner being they enter the outer being? How do they enter? Because there are channels of communication between the inner being and the outer being. Between the inner personality and the outer being, there are channels of communication. And these channels of communication also were known, but Sri Aurobindo organized it in a different way. These are the, in Sri Aurobindo's perspective, these channels of communication between the inner being and the outer being are the chakras. They are the chakras. What we know as the chakras is not something magical, is not something that has come from magic. It is just a very psychological perspective. It is our link between our inner being and our outer being. And the old traditions was to open it from below up, which was risky, because when the lower chakras are open, tremendous physical and sexual energy are activated. Then if you don't have good guides, you can get lost. Even when people got lost, many activities have come from the activation of those chakras when people got stuck up at that level. You see the erotic art in Konarak and Khajuraho and all that. That has come from that level of consciousness. But it is very risky. One can get stuck up. Sri Aurobindo gave a very different way of working with the chakras. He said you don't have to work from below upwards. The superconscious will come down. He didn't use the word Mahakundalini. Madhav Pandit was giving a lecture, he used the word Mahakundalini, as if there is a Mahakundalini above which will come down. Which will come down and open the chakras one by one according to your need. So you might need to open your chakra X and Y. He might need to open his chakras Z and S. So for different people, it will be different chakras which are needed for their opening, for their personality development. The superconscious will decide that. The superconscious will come down, do that work. But the superconscious cannot come down like that. It needs an activating principle. And that activating principle is that you have to work on your psychic being. If you work on your psychic being, then that superconscious, that Mahakundalini will be activated, which will come down and open your centers one by one. So then again, he brings into the chakra system, he brings the psychic being which was never known. You know, if you see the chakras from below up, what is the work of the heart chakra? The heart chakra's work is to purify your emotions from the negative connotations. Purify love from its negative connotations. As I told you that love comes with hatred. From the unconscious, it is coming with opposite things. So the heart chakra, what it does, it frees your love, your emotions from the negative connotations and links it with the cosmic love. Great thing. Without even talking about the chakras, all the great people who talked about love and compassion from Buddha and others, they have worked on at that level. Sri Aurobindo brings another thing, the psychic being, which is behind the heart chakra and which is different. Why? Because the heart chakra is there in the outer being, between the inner being and the outer being. And the psychic being has come from above. So it is intrinsically pure. Right? It has descended from the Jivatma. Psychic being is a projection of the Jivatma. It is pure. It doesn't contain any impurity. It is pure love. It is completely pure. In the heart chakra has to, what you call, segregate the pure from the impure. But the psychic being automatically is pure. It doesn't have to do the work of segregation. So if you go to that, then that will bring down from above all the things. And your chakras will open. And another beauty is, in Sri Aurobindo's perspective, if you are concentrating on Mother and Sri Aurobindo, invoking them, working on your psychic being, you do not need to have to be conscious of your chakras. Their work will be done automatically even with your knowing about which chakra is being activated or not. You don't have to work with all the details and technicalities of the chakras. You might not know even of what is happening. It will, all these things happen automatically, they will happen. Very few references are there in records of yoga on chakras. I think very few, not even 10. Because whatever will happen automatically by Mother's grace. You don't have to work on your way very so strong. So this is the beautiful structure that I'm giving you. Keeping this structure in your mind, now how we can work on our mental health and emotional health. Now for our mental health, we have to go back to our inner mind. We have to develop our inner mind. Now what is inner mind? Inner mind, I will tell you, though it is something concerning yoga, but certain things are now, time has come when you have to start working with ourselves here in this life. this is, you see, our outer mind understands things how? By sensory knowledge of sensory perception, and by reason. These are our instruments of the outer mind. But senses, do our senses tell us the right thing? The first thing about reality that our senses tell us is that the sun is going around the earth. Shobin is very favorite example. The sun is going around the earth, which is not true, but phenomenally true. Fundamentally not true, but phenomenally it is true, we are seeing. But you see that senses is not giving the correct information unless we go to reason. Then Shobin says, reason doesn't only produce antithesis against thesis that we all know, but we have our irrationality of existence. This is what Shobin used, irrationality of existence. Irrationality of existence is we are subject to our culture's taboos, superstitions. We are subject to them. If I am head of a big factory and 5,000 people surround me and they start asking, shouting slogans, the first thing that I will remember is what my japa, my grandma used to do over my head when I was a small child. Will I be rational at that time? I will not be rational. Again, I am a person who knows nothing but only amassing wealth, but I can also be attracted by Beethoven's music, which is not going to bring me money. It's something else. It's something super conscious. So I have super conscious roots, I have infrarational roots, I have super rational roots. So therefore, Sri Aurobindo said that there are other ways of acquiring knowledge other than sensory perception and reason. These come to us in sparks, but this can be developed methodically. This can be developed methodically. Then you have to go to the inner mind. For example, the inner mind has the capacity for inspiration. Inspiration means what? Like great musicians, they bring music from above. So there is a word in Sanskrit called Anahata Bani. You've heard that, huh? Those who do music. That is a music which is there in a very high sphere of consciousness, which is not producing sound because there is no surface to strike. So it is soundless music. And great musicians bring music from their sphere to produce great ragas and all. That's inspiration. You know, that must be why Beethoven, while he was dying, his last words were, I shall die in heaven. I shall die in heaven. These were his last words. Why he said that? I shall die in heaven, because he knew that he was in contact with the music of the spheres, with the immortal music. That's why he could say that I shall hear it in heaven. He never heard his own music in the way we hear, but he heard it in a different way. Then there is intuition, which is very favorite subject of Sri Aurobindo, again, which requires a very separate workshop, how to understand intuition, how to develop intuition. These things can be done. In fact, I take workshops on this, how to develop intuition. Sri Aurobindo and in the East and Bergson in the West, they have explained that the next stage, the age of reason, will be surpassed by the age of intuition. You see, intuition is something where knowledge comes automatically, spontaneously. Automatically and spontaneously it comes. As for example, this benzene ring, right? It was discovered by this scientist Kekule, who was not finding any formula, and then suddenly he had an intuitive dream. He saw a snake eating its own tail. Now, snake eating its own tail is not is the first thing he saw. First person he saw that. It is a very ancient symbol, which is used by the Greeks. So that means it is there in the cosmic consciousness. From the cosmic consciousness, it came into him in his dream, and immediately got up from his sleep and he designed that hexagonal structure of benzene. So you see that how, as Sokprem has explained, that how the three types of fire have been described in Rigveda: the ordinary fire, then the Vaidyutik Agni, the electrical fire, and the Shaurya Agni, the solar fire. As if the difference between ordinary fire, electricity, and nuclear fission was intuitively known. So all these things came from intuition. So intuition is a very big thing which we can develop. You see, we also have intuitions. Once a year it happens that we want to see a word in a dictionary, and you open the book, dictionary, and that page appears. It happens now. Once a year, or the word Savitri was looking for something, you open and immediately get it. We think that it is an accident. It is an accident. For 1 microsecond, our concentration was in harmony, so it clicked. Now we don't know how to extend that. That we have to learn. How to extend that capacity, that we have to learn. That is something to learn. Then you see that then there is a knowledge by revelation. Knowledge was revealed. Knowledge was revealed to the great rishis. Mantras came. Even you see to Moses, to Prophet Muhammad, to Guru Nanak. I often feel that one of the reasons that why Hindu-Muslim unity we are struggling nowadays, because we have not done obeisance to Guru Nanak. The first thing, the first message that came to Guru Nanak from the spiritual realms was, there is no Hindu and there is no Muslim. This is the first message he heard. He was meditating, and the first thing he heard, there is no Hindu and there is no Muslim. And then Sri Aurobindo has said, acknowledged, that he had tried to synthesize the deepest elements of Islam and Vedanta, but it was done ahead of his times. So people didn't understand the true significance, because it was done much ahead of his times. So it was done much ahead of his time. So therefore, this true significance was not understood in that way. So that we have to, that is a very great thing, that knowledge comes by revelation. And the mantras, the rishis brought the mantras to revelation. Then the knowledge by identity. So there's a different thing. How do you know that? How do you know that what is your anger? When you are angered, you are conscious of your anger, then you can identify with your anger. So yogis use that technique to identify with the deeper and deeper states. Anyway, what I'm saying is that there are certain things in the inner mind we can start working. In the inner mind, now, Sri Aurobindo has said for the first time in history, then before I will go for all the things that we can start doing in our own spheres, you see, till Sri Aurobindo, what the idea was that from your mind, which is so full of contradictions, when Jagat Mithya Brahma Satya also included the Jagat, the mental Jagat. You see, Jagat Mithya Brahma Satya also included the mental world of all these negative and contradictory things. So you leave it and go to the Brahma, go to the great void, go to the Nirvana, go to the absolute. That was always the, what you call, the path that was followed here. That was always the path that was followed in Indian spirituality, was leave the mind, and like a galloping train, you just jump over to the great void. Only Sri Aurobindo comes to clear a different thing. He said, oh, that is a good thing, you can do that, but there's another way. What is that way? That way is that the cognitive consciousness can itself evolve. The cognitive consciousness can itself evolve. It can start evolving, and it can evolve, and it can produce new fields of consciousness force, Chit Shakti, new fields of higher minds. You see, supracognitive minds. You see, our mind is a cognitive field, supracognitive fields. So supracognitive fields can open one after another. One after another, the supracognitive fields can open. Very great thing. If we want to get over the problems of our mind, then actually what we have to do is to see how the supracognitive fields, the minds that are above our minds, that can be opened. You see, the first thing is the mind just above our mind, which will do a small type of exercise to try to see that how you can understand that. Just above our mind is a mind called Sri Aurobindo calls the higher mind. Now, what is that mind? That is the mind that contains all our contradictory and complementary ideas simultaneously. Difficult. You see, when I first take counseling classes, I take counseling classes for postgraduate students. The first day, always, invariably, I do this. I tell them that in this class, irrespective of your caste, class, religion, are you the same? And the students will say, yes, yes, yes. You see, postgraduate students, 21 years age, they will always say, yes, yes, we are equal. I say, though, that is a level of consciousness where all ideas have an equal value, contradictory and complementary. All ideas have an equal value. So that is a level of consciousness where all ideas have an equal value. It is very difficult because we are conditioned by our culture, by our education, by the way of thinking which we are provided in our childhood. So we are ingrained with certain types of ideas, and we think that other ideas are not right. Very, very difficult. It's extremely difficult. You have to be completely non-judgmental. You have to be completely non-judgmental. Being non-judgmental, you see, being non-judgmental itself is so difficult. Leave aside the higher mind. Do you think it is easy to be non-judgmental? One day, one of my Muslim patients from my ancestral village, he came running to me one evening, quite far from my city. Sir, I have to commit suicide because I have married a very religious and pious girl. I said, what is the matter? No, she's so pious. I have told everything in my life to her, all the wrong things I've done. How many times I've cheated customers? He is a grocer. How many times I've duped girls? How many times I've cheated and they've not bought my tickets in the railway and the metro? And every time my wife has brought out that book, no, of Hadith, and said, for this, in hell, you will be roasted for 6 months. For that, in hell, we'll have this punishment for 3 months. For that, another punishment for 1 year. It was like, quantum of punishment is so much. There is better to commit suicide. I should not have married a religious girl. I should have married a very ordinary girl. Then, though he is from my village and though he is Muslim, but still because he was from village, he loves me. So I told him about Tirupati, Lord Balaji, what mother had told about Balaji. You see, Balaji's eyes are blindfolded. Now, if you go and ask in Tirupati why his eyes are blindfolded, they will not be able to tell. But mother has told that the divine is absolutely non-judgmental. When you are standing in front, your virtues are not counted, your vices are not counted. Your goodness is not counted, your badness is not counted. Your past is not counted, your future is not counted. At that moment, if you are sincere, you will get what you want at that moment. Now, this is difficult because there are two things in this. There are two things in this statement. Why it is difficult? One is that you have to be absolutely non-judgmental. Second is at that moment, at that moment also we cannot do because it is an outcome of circular thinking. It is not of linear thinking. It doesn't come. You see, I'm sidetracking to just tell you the importance. It's the relation between one and many. We are always told that the one became many, as if somebody sounded a big gong and one became many. If you read Sri Aurobindo, it is not like that. Always the one is there and always the many is there. In one voice, it is the one. In another voice, it is the many. At that moment, at any moment, you can be either on this side or on that side. At every moment, you can be on the side of one. At every moment, you can be on the side of many. But if the many is not there, one will still remain. And if the many is not there, the many can still come out of the one. This is the difference. But at any point, you can be either on this side or you can be on that side. So you can be on this side of the outer being where all these things, virtues and vices are dwelling, or on that side, the side of the psychic being where it is pure truth. All these things don't matter at all. So at any point, you can be this side or that side, not what one will end and another will start. It will never come in life. There one point in life will stay and will say at the age of this age, I will stop thinking about these things and concentrate only on the divine. It's not like that. At every moment in your life, there are always these choices. No? Either you be on that side or you be on this side. You see, on the side of multiplicity or you be the side of unity. Both are existing simultaneously. For Sri Aurobindo, the individual, the universal, and the transcendent are three equal poises of the same reality. For Sri Aurobindo, there are three equal poises of the same reality. Again, it is difficult to understand because you see, again, I'm sidetracking a bit because all these things are interwoven each other. Then you will tell that you have not specifically, you have not concentrated on the topic. Mr. Bhattacharya will scold me afterwards, but still, just pardon me, just to show you the importance that how important it is. Mother has said, for every, in our Indian tradition, every tradition believes that the individual, after some time, after the individual has lived his life, it has no relevance. The individual soul merges with the super soul. Individual soul merges with the Jivatma. The individual soul merges with the Supreme. That is the fate of the individual. What is the fate of the individual? That at one time it has to merge with the Supreme. Only Sri Aurobindo and only Sri Aurobindo says, there's no. Individual will always remain individual. It will join with the super soul. Joint, na? Make a joint limited company, na? Like that. When their father died, Mukesh Ambani didn't dissolve into his father, na? Made a different company like that, and again outgrew him. It is just like that. That they will join and might outgrow also. So that, of course, that joining takes place in the super mind. But show you to tell this, I'm telling this to you to show the importance of the individual. We as individuals are important. We do not vanish. Remember, we do not vanish. Do you think we will vanish? We will not vanish. If you read Savitri, you see why I'm telling this to make you understand why all of our endeavors are so important. Even if I am old, still it is important. If you think that I have become very old and I don't need to do this, know these new things, only the young people will need to know. It's not that. You see, if you see Savitri, the most difficult chapter of Savitri is the first chapter, and the most difficult thing in the first chapter is the first page. If you read the first page carefully, you will see that as individual life, everything sinks into the unconscious. When the creation is dissolved, when prolaya happens, the cycles, creative cycle, when the cycles of creation dissolve, then they go and sink into the universal unconscious. That is, the universal unconscious is there. Like us, individual things go into our own unconscious. So every creative cycle, when it dissolves, all things sink into the universal unconscious. You see, you just imagine the Ananta Sajja of Vishnu. Vishnu in Ananta Sajja is holding that. Vishnu in Ananta Sajja is holding everything, which has all gone in the past. Nothing is lost. Everything is being held by him. And at every cycle of creation is not starting from a vacuum. Nothing is starting from a vacuum. Of all what is there in the past, again, taking that as a template, again, the new cycle is coming. So whatever we are discussing, even our individual lives, they are important. If we have made some progress, of course, if we have wasted our lives, that will go to the cosmic waste paper basket. But what individual real progress in consciousness we have done, that will remain. Even not only in this life, not only in this creation, even after this creation is dissolved, all what we are doing, afterwards, when the new cycle of creation will come, these experiences will go. You see, there might be many things in our cycle of creation which has come from past cycles. All things have not come from this cycle. In the beginning when our civilization started, how did we give such beautiful names to all the flowers, to the rivers, to the mountains, to names, the beautiful names you find in Mahabharata and Ramayana? How these beautiful names you find in everywhere? How do you find? What is the origin of these beautiful names? Now, when a child born, people search the Google for the names. That day, when one gentleman came to me, in that Bengali book, it was written Islam and Namkaran, naming in Islam. I said, Dada, what is this book? Well, sir, don't tell me. It's very disgusting. Our religion came from Arabia. All the words that it used in Arabia for abusing purpose. The people in India use them as names. So I made a correct choice of names. Then I was understanding that what a great thing our rishis have done. And from where? Many names must have come from past cycles of creation. How in the beginning they got such beautiful names? These names, which are in consonance with the objects. Naming of flowers and fruits were done in consonance with the vibration of the objects. Thousands and thousands. They were done by a second. They were done without computers, without all these things. They were done in a second. Of course, these things have come. Certain things have come. Might be even certain images, like the image of Ganesha, might have come from the past creations. We don't know, from past cycles. But the individual is important, and whatever we done, the main thing is that what I wanted to stress, because the individual is important, and whatever we'll do at the level of our individuality is important. It is going to stay. I think our time is coming up limited. I will not take much time. We'll just show you 2-3 exercises which you can do, and then let me speak a little bit about emotions, and then you can ask questions. I'm just, these exercises are known to you. Just I'm trying to give it to you so that you can understand its significance and use it in a different way, devise it in different ways. If you read the synthesis of yoga, you will find that constantly you can develop your own yoga. People tell me, what is your yoga practice in your ashram? I said, no, Shri has not given a set system. In fact, you can develop your own yoga. Bhattacharya yoga, you can also say, for yourself, not for others, like that. So you can develop your own yoga in your own way, for your own self. Synthesis of yoga is always giving you hints, like you can develop them. There are ideas. So all exercises that I give, I devise many exercises from synthesis of yoga, seed ideas that are given there. There are what you call dozens and dozens. You can always, for your own understanding, for your own self, you can develop them. Now, this is one very small exercise, 3-4 minutes I will take. So afterwards, you can amplify them, because most of you here are experienced and you have been in the process. Most of you are in the process itself. So I'll tell you to make your mind silent. Just close your eyes and just follow me for a few minutes. Make your mind silent. And for those of you make your mind silent, you can make your mind silent directly. Make your mind silent directly. And those of you who cannot make your mind silent, just concentrate that your mind is a big house which is locked, Or those of you, others also who are used to make your mind silent, you can also follow this, that you conceive that your mind is a house which is locked, an empty house, empty and locked. Your mind is a house that is empty and locked, and thoughts are coming from all sides. Thoughts are coming from all sides. Your mind is a house that is empty and locked, and thoughts are coming from all sides, but they can't enter your house. The thoughts are visitors who are coming from all sides. They can't enter a house that is locked, so they are encircling the house of your mind and passing away. They are encircling the house of your mind and passing away. Your mind was a house that is locked, completely locked, empty and locked, empty and locked, empty and locked. Your mind is empty and locked, and your mind has become silent, completely silent. And your mind has become silent, completely silent. And when your mind has become completely silent and empty, then from very high above, a huge column of light and force comes down and descends into your mind, pierces the roof of the house of your mind, occupies it completely. So when your mind has become silent and a huge piece of carbon light has come down, and has become consolidated there in your mind, and has become consolidated there in your mind, and your mind has become silent, and then it is full of this light and peace that has come from above. And when that light has peace has been consolidated, when that light and peace has been consolidated, just think that your substance of your mind, where your cognitive processes happen, where you think, where you plan, where you have your strategies, that mind is getting up your head, is getting raised from your head. That mind is getting raised from your head. When your mind has become consolidated with the light and peace from above, it has become silent and settled. After that, the place, the plane where your thinking happens, gets raised up from your mind, from your head by a few inches. It gets raised up from your mind by your head by a few inches. It gets raised up. The plane where you're thinking, strategy formation, all these things happen, is getting raised up a bit from your head, from your skull. It is getting raised up from your head, and then it is spreading out wide. It is spreading out wide, like a huge expanse of space or glass or water. It is spreading out. So first your mind becomes silent, the image goes away. Then your mind was full of peace and light. And when your mind was settled, then the plane of thinking has risen up from your mind, and it has gone above your head. It has expanded. Expansion occurs to the extremes, to the what you call interminable expansion. And from very, very high above, very high droplets of light are coming and getting absorbed in that surface, or rainbows of light are coming and getting absorbed on that surface of your expanded mind, which got raised up from your level of your thinking. So that's the mind that has raised up from your level of your ordinary mind. It has got above and it has spread. And there from very high above, you have lights impinging on it, or rainbows impinging on it. Or if it goes away, again come back to the beginning, where your mind was silent, and was silent, it was full of light and peace. And when light and peace has settled down, then the thinking part had raised up itself. And when it has raised up, it was raised up, and then it had gone. It had expanded, and it had expanded ad infinitum. And then from very high above, pieces of light, droplets of light came and fell on the surface. Yes, you can open your eyes. This is something which you can develop yourselves. I'm just giving you a seed idea. This kind of thing, that there are two components in it. It is not necessary that you do the two components together. Because of paucity of time, I merged two exercises together. The first one is just make the mind silent. You know, if you just make the mind, you don't think of the second part, going above. Sometimes during the day, make your mind silent for a few minutes. Now you say you don't get the time. You can get the time when you're traveling in a vehicle. You don't have any work to do now. The driver is driving the vehicle, you are sitting. You have some time, you just make your mind silent. Then what happens when you make the mind silent? Why do you want to make this mind silent? Not because we want to stop thinking. No, not because of that. We want to make the mind silent because the mind is usually full of trivial ideas. It's shown because the physical mind. When I got out of my house, I'm thinking whether I've switched off the lights properly, whether I've switched off my geyser, whether my daughter has returned home safely from school. All these small things now go on running in my mind. Show me the cause that the physical mind. Physical mind is full of trivial things. Now, because of our physical mind activities, higher thoughts cannot come and lodge inside our brain. Higher thoughts, they need a space. So if you make a mind silent, then intuitive thoughts will come and fill up your mind. Now, what will you do? You can. So this is the first part of the exercise that I'm saying. First is that you can make your mind silent. After that, you can do, which I have not shown, you can picture, before bringing the light inside your mind, you can picture your brain inside your skull. Take and picture, if you are not conversant with the picture of the brain from the internet, to know what is the forebrain, midbrain, or the hindbrain. Put it there and then bring the light into that brain. Wonderful. After some time, you will see your memory. People who are past 60 will tell you can do these exercises, you will find your memory will increase. Certain things which you wanted, you would have forgotten, you would suddenly remember. You bring the light into your brain substance. Or you can picture a neuron there. Picture of a neuron, the brain cell. You can put it there with the cell, dendrites, and axons. If you are conversant with the neuron, or you just put the picture of brain there. And then other parts of your body, if you have problems with the heart, if you have problems with the liver, if you have problems with the prostate, you can bring down the light there. After consolidating the light in your mind, you can bring in your brain, you can bring the light down your spine and then direct it into the organs that you want. You see, your organs functioning, it will start working in a more subtle way. But you can start with the brain. You will find it very interesting, and you will find intuitive ideas come. And the second part of the exercise, which I'm saying is very interesting, we have to find out how we want to go into that realm of higher mind where all thoughts, contradictory and complementary, are staying together. Now, wonderful. Actually, we have to find out those who are working with Sri Aurobindo on education. I tell them, you find out how we can bring it out in education. People ask why? How? I say, children should be taught to think with contradictory ideas. So if there is a debate competition in the school, one group is talking for the point, one group is talking against the point. But to make one child to talk both for the point and against the point. People ask me, is it possible? I mean, why not? If one can play chess with oneself, this can also be taught. What will happen? If they start, you see, I learned that for the first time in my life with Mother's Grace, I had to speak on Sri Aurobindo psychology. I got the chance to speak in Oxford, the British Psychological Society in Oxford. So I was very afraid because of that, that I should not be a fool in front of everybody. I was very stressed. But the first question that I was asked, is this being said for the first time? Somebody from Harvard was there who had asked me this question. A philosophy student from Harvard who had come to do PhD in Oxford because he had no guide in Harvard for his subject. And then for a split second, I knew that they want to know Sri Aurobindo, where they want to take a new thing. They want to take a new thing, experiment, observation, verification, if it falls in their mold. Otherwise, the Western mind will not take a new thing. So unless it is told by someone like Einstein and Buddha, then they will take. But they don't know Sri Aurobindo, they know Buddha and Einstein. So I told, Sri Aurobindo has said this, that the opposite of what I say is true. Sri Aurobindo is not wanting to have a monopoly on truth. They were very happy. And you see, the opposite of what I say is true. Very difficult. Only Sri Aurobindo can say that. Of course, Sri Aurobindo was also, a bit naughty. So he added, at the moment, what I say is true. That I didn't tell. Because that inspiration I got from Guru Nanak. He had heard that voice, that there is no Hindu and there is no Muslim. And then he went to Muslims and then he said there is no Muslim. He didn't say that there are no Hindus. And then he went to Hindus and said there are no Hindus. So I thought if Guru Nanak can tell that, I should also tell half of what Sri Aurobindo said. That I know that the opposite of what I say is true. We have to teach our children to think in a way that the opposite idea also has a truth they must understand. Then only the world can rise above all this dogmatic thinking, all this type of thinking that is going around the world. As I'm a psychiatrist, people say that how schizophrenics are harmful to society. I said, who tells schizophrenics are harmful? Some of them are harmful, but more harmful are the cult leaders, the great intellectual people who thrust their intellectual ideas on the masses. Great cult gurus, semi-gurus, cult gurus, big intellectuals, they have got their ideas and they thrust it upon us. And they are all one-sided ideas. It is more harm are being done by them because people don't know to think. You have to give a thinking which is flexible. And if you have that flexible kind of thinking, automatically your mind will rise above dogmatism. Then you will not fall in the trap when the terrorists all over the world, terrorism, how it spreads its nets by young boys. They pick up young boys with a certain cultural bent. They will pick up. One of my patient's son was picked up. You see, one of my patient's son, I will tell you this story, very interesting. He is a Muslim family, and I see all of them. I was seeing their mother for a long time. And these 3 children and 3 sons, one son grew up, and when he was doing his MTech, he was picked up by the fundamentalist group. Then parents used to come and cry. See, they take all these good students like doing MTech, MBBS, and they show to other boys so that they can attract their minds. They work on the minds. It is mind games they play. Because they told me, doctor, it is nothing. It is mind games. It is just playing with mind games. Then this lady, but you see, inside, we should not be afraid. We have to approach them. In this case, I will tell you, it was Durga Puja time. I was in Calcutta, and I was in my clinic seeing very little patients who during Durga Puja, I only see very few selected cases. And this mother came with the son, hoping his son had come home. He was not coming home. He was with the fundamentalist group. He had suddenly come home, and his mother said, I'm not ill. I'm ill. You take me to the doctor. So on a pretense, she brought him to me so that I could tell him something. I should give him a message that come out of this fundamentalist group. But I can't tell that to a Muslim boy who is educated and who is with the group. How can I tell? Will he listen to me? So I was a bit apprehensive. Then his mother came and told me, sir, it is your Durga Puja, Hindu festival. You give me prasad. I said, I don't have puja in my home, but I have fruits now for my snacks. Now you see that I take snacks while I'm taking fruits. So the fruits came, I said, and then she took the fruits, and then she explained to her son that fruits don't have Hindu Muslim any stamp on it. You see, and you should listen to the doctor what he says. And then I took the advantage of explaining to him, all right, you be with your principles and your philosophy, but you have done your MTech, be at home, do your duties. It is also your duty to serve the country, do your professional work, and have some time for your philosophical or your idealistic things. He couldn't protest because from his childhood he had seen that I have treated his mother. So he couldn't protest. But his mother came and she was very happy that I told him. And at night, that very night, the mother got a stroke and died. You see, it was just like a swan song coming to me and making me tell, using that prasad in front of the Sri Aurobindo's mother's picture, coming and telling me. And that very night, early 50s, she just had a stroke and she fell down. She had predicted that 2-3 days back that I can die any day. But you see that inside of the inside, people want not to be with that. We have to go to them. You see, it is not that everybody is dogmatic. The whole family is dogmatic, not like that. They were suffering because the son had been undergoing all these things. But if we in our education system, without saying all these things, we just teach children how to deal with opposite ideas. We develop this idea, how to teach children. You see, what a great thing we'll be doing. We'll be making our mind ready to accept those things, you know. People tell me, many people are very sad that many people don't come to Sri Aurobindo's meetings. I said many people will not come. There are many reasons for it. One is that Sri Aurobindo's work is very selective. Very few people will know. The work will be done, but you cannot advertise. No advertisement will be successful. Benefit will be got by people, but that you have to know that the work will not be known. It is something in your own sphere. It is your own relation with the mother that the work will be done. So this one you have to accept this, that this work is a very, what you call, different kind of work. This is a very different kind of work. And then more important thing is why Sri Aurobindo's ideas are not so widespread. It is now just the time is coming, because the last 2000 years there was one type of what you call wave that was ruling our minds. That wave was initiated by great minds like Buddha, Confucius, Plato, Socrates. One type of thinking. If you see all these things that are happening today, they have their seeds in all these ideas of Buddhism, Plato, all these things. Huh? Whether it's democracy, whether it's compassion. In USA, for example, all psychotherapy is now done not by Freud, but by all Buddhist methods, mindfulness, meditation, all this. Buddha has replaced clinical Buddhism. Buddha has now replaced Freud. So all ideas have been embedded there. Now that cycle is ending and Sri Aurobindo's thought cycle is starting. Sri Aurobindo's thought cycle is circular thinking. You see, Mother said, truth is not successive but simultaneous. Not successive but simultaneous, not linear but global. Hence, it cannot be expressed in words, it has to be lived. It is not linear but global. That global thinking. Because of that global thinking, you see that one and the many are always there. Either you can be on the side of the one or you can be on the side of the many. So that is the type of what you call global thinking, circular thinking. It is only now, you see, exceptional minds were understanding Sri Aurobindo. But the global youth mind only now is becoming a little non-linear in thinking. So people now can change lines. Huh? I can start with an engineer and then I can shift to become a chartered accountant or to be a journalist. There is no, in our times, it was not like that. You have to be science, arts, commerce, huh? This, that. There was no other alternative. But now you see the mind is so flexible. You see, people tell what is the example? People are not reading. I said, people read. In our times, everybody also were not reading books. But people now read Harry Potter. Students read Harry Potter. 30, 40 years back, do you think people could have read Harry Potter? They would have been said that you are reading all nonsense books. You see, with the modern stage, when the modern stage came, then when the postmodern age came, where you can have truth from all sides other than rationality, then you see the avenue open, other things are also interesting. So with not only Harry Potter, all these occult things and all, people love all these things. They're acceptable to the youth mind. Youth mind is now openly and becoming flexible to everything, so that political parties can't have that type of grip on the youth mind which they used to have before. Many people tell me that children are, students are becoming professionals nowadays. They're not interested in idealistic things. I said, no, they're not interested in pseudo-idealistic things. All these are pseudo-idealistic things. They understand there is a vacuum. If they are given the right thing, they will of course take the right thing. They know that all your things that you are speaking of is outdated. It is totally outdated. They will not go for those things. This is a sign that the world is preparing to shift from linear to non-linear thinking. This is a time when Sri Aurobindo's things have to be given. This is a time when Sri Aurobindo's things have to be given. So this is a time in the school curriculum, how we can start to have intuitive thinking, how we can use that in our children, how we can use to have thinking with contradictory ideas and all these things. Now to end, I will end. My time is already, I think, quite up. 15 minutes up. I will just give a small exercise and I will end. With all of our emotions and all of our things we say, desires and all, it is, you see, we have a word, very fashionable word, cognitive behavior therapy. With your mind, you are trying to control your emotions and behavior. In integral perspective, it has little value. Our value is that both the mind and the vital, they are under the control of something which is surpassing them, the psychic being. With your mind, you can have little control over your emotions. How much control do you have? Some control, not full control. To have better control, you have to go to your psychic being, which is in the fourth dimension. Then only you can have better control over both the instruments, over your mind, over your emotions, over your energy, over your physical. So much better is that to shift to the psychic being. Now, where we concentrate on the psychic being, we go deep inside. I will just, this is something which most of you are doing, but I will just tell you to do something a little bit, add a little bit, so that you can actually go to the fourth dimension. Because psychic being is in the fourth dimension, which we can stop short of the fourth dimension. Why I'm giving the exercise, when we sit down, close our eyes and concentrate and go within, we often end up in the third dimension, psychological third dimension. Not the physical third dimension, the psychological third dimension. So we have to still go beyond it. So I will just tell you a few minutes like the other exercise and then we close. That please please close your eyes and go deep within yourself. Deep within, go deep within. Go deep within, go deep. As far as you can go, as deep as you can go. Now what happens when I go deep within? I go deep within, I go into a space. I go into a space within myself, which is very deep, but most often it is a space that is our third dimension, means the space which contains all our viscera, our heart, lungs, organs. We go inside that space and we go to the deepest part of that space. When you close your eyes and go deep inside, then first thing you go is into the third dimension, the space which contains all your organs, your heart, lungs, and all your viscera. And you go further behind, and you go to the end of that space, and then again you have to go again behind that space also. It is like that, like when you are in a space and from one spaceship, the astronauts go to another spaceship, they have to cross this cosmic space. So when an astronaut crosses from one spaceship to another spaceship in space, he has actually to swim through a space of cosmos. So like that, when you have reached the end of the space which contains all your organs, you still go behind to another space, and you cross the cosmic consciousness, like the astronaut crosses the cosmos to go to another spaceship. So there is another space, another completely different space, which is not an extension of your third dimension, not an extension of your space where you have initially gone, but it's a different space, separated by the cosmic consciousness from the space in which you have already gone. And there's a very different space, a completely different space. Or if you are conversant with in the riverfront, there are many boats, and you have to go to the last boat. Then you cross boats one by one by walking, but each boat is separated from the other boat by a piece, by water, by a strip of water. It is like that, that you have gone there. There's a strip of cosmic consciousness that is separating that space which contains the organs from that another space which is far behind. And that is the space which is the Chidakash, which is the consciousness space, which contains your soul, which contains the psychic being, which is a different kind of space, altogether a different space. The space in the fourth dimension. So again, we are going deep inside. You go to the farthest end where you have gone. And when you have gone, you know it is not the end. You have to shift to a different space altogether, not a different point in the same space, but a different space altogether, crossing a strip of cosmic consciousness. And you go there to the fourth dimension. Just go there and poise yourself in the fourth dimension. It is in the fourth dimension that you will free yourself from everything. All your outer desires, all your outer things, all the full control of your desires, of your mind, of your aberrant thoughts, of your desires and everything only can be had satisfactorily. They will fall away. You don't have to fight with them when you go to that space. When you start experiencing that space, then the fightings that you have to do in the outer being to deal with your desires, constantly to fight with them, constantly, all these fightings will not be necessary. They will actually drop away. So you start going to that, a space more behind than the farthest end that you have got. It is not an extension of the space where you started. It's a different kind of space altogether. So that's the fourth dimension. Yes, you can open your eyes. So you see that the problems of our life, all these things can only be solved if you only go to the different space. In the outer space, we always have to struggle. You can succeed, but throughout your life at the end, might be not this life, some other life, but otherwise, yes, I'm ending. So this is something that can be done. I'm very sorry that I extended my nearly 20 minutes. Sorry for that. Thank you. Anything, anybody can add also something if you want to say, ask something, or you can add something which is more important. Please come and say.
Makes us turn inward.
You see, inward, if a suffering can make me turn inwards, there are different kinds of inwardness. There is a pathological withdrawal, which happens in many of our psychiatric patients. They're unable to cope with the problems of life, they go inwards. So it is more of a withdrawal, social withdrawal. So actually, not everything is kept inside. Just because they can't cope with the things, they go inside. But that coping, that going inwards, which we call social withdrawal, is a bit is to be tackled, because that is not something very healthy. Then there are some people who are introvert. For them, going inwards is natural, which doesn't mean that they are doing it part of a sadhana, but it's the nature. They go inwards because outwardly they will not express the things, but inwardly they can go on boiling with the things more than that. And those people who are doing real sadhana, if they actually know how to enjoy to the inner being and afterwards into the psychic being, then that will help the things in the outer world to drop away one after another. Things can drop away. That is a very positive thing. So there are many levels in which these things are done. So if you are in consciously in sadhana, then you have to cultivate your inner being. And afterwards, the inner being is supported not by the ego, but by the psychic being. So then all these things in the outer being, they automatically will fall one by another. That is one thing. But otherwise, people keeping all the things intact, they go inside, that is, they keep everything actually, which will come out in some other form. So you have to be very diligent. Even in sadhana, it is very, as I said, that the outer being and the inner being, there are gaps. There are these chakras, from where the inner being, outer being, and inner being communication. Now, when we go from the outer being to the inner being, we might accidentally or due to our immaturity fall into that zone between the inner being and the outer being. AUROBINDO calls that the intermediate zone. Once you fall there, then you will be prone to all sorts of diseases, hallucinations, illusions, psychiatric problems, physical problems, all sorts of. So it's a pitfall of sadhana. And then people who have gone to the inner being, they can open themselves up to the cosmic consciousness in such a way that from the cosmic consciousness, not only they can open to positive forces, they can open to negative forces. And the negative forces can come inside and shut your. They can do two things. They can go and catch hold of your ego. It happens to many gurus who start very nicely, afterwards they become diabolical. You see, they started very sincerely, but from the cosmic consciousness, the negative forces entered and they caught hold of the ego. Or it can go behind and it can shut up the soul from the rest of the being. AUROBINDO calls that possession. So all these things are very great pitfalls. So everything is not so easy. Best is to surrender to the mother, every step to surrender to the mother. That is the easiest thing that has been given to us. In our path, mother is the key person. Mother is the key role. She is the main thing that we have to hold on to. She is our only clutch. Then the risk is less. Huh? The? This is the understand that in AUROBINDO system, reality is simultaneously present in the transcendent, individual, and the universal causes. Simultaneously present. So the individual doesn't dissolve after his work ends. The individual soul, individual consciousness doesn't dissolve into the super consciousness, doesn't dissolve into the super soul. So if it has gained something, if it has worked upon itself, of course it has to work upon itself. If anybody has not worked upon oneself, then everything will go to the cosmic waste paper basket. That's a different thing. But you have worked upon yourself, then the individual gains of your soul that will remain, and your psychic being will gather those experiences, and at a certain time it will join with the Jivat. It will not dissolve in the Jivat. It will join with the Jivatma for greater denouement, and that will be the real Superman. The Superman being who will come will actually be a product of the joining of the Jivatma and the psychic being. These three things are continuously, simultaneously important. not only aspiration, rejection, and surrender. These three things have to actually go on continuously. That is our mantra, that you have to aspire so that the superconscious comes down. That aspiration has to come. But that aspiration cannot come in an impure way. So always all the negative things have to be simultaneously rejected. And again, that with our own strength, it will not happen. Everything has to be surrendered to the mother so that the mother actually will work it out. So these three things go on simultaneously. You see, it is important. Aspiration has to go on with rejection. Now in our Delhi, there is this Gnostic center is there. There is a center where, so there was this Radhika was conducting a program for the university, or called school students, I think high school students. There were a mixture of Hindu, Muslim, every community was represented. And she was explaining how the divine is inside. And suddenly one Muslim girl protested. He said, divine cannot be inside, divine is outside. And then Radhika shouted, divine is inside. And she said, no, divine is outside. And he was shouting people so much that this girl actually fainted. Now, you will see, that is because in Islam, it is a blasphemy to say that in this disharmonious being, as we are, we can have the divine inside. But you see, we have, but for us, the divine is inside. But what they say also has a partial truth. You see, Sri Aurobindo said that you have to make the temple clean to install the divine presence. So that means constantly the rejection has to be done, or the aspiration will not succeed. If the rejection of the negative things are not done, you see, every system has got one partial truth. Like that in Christianity, I told man is a sinner, there's a partial truth. Then here also, that blasphemy to think that divine is inside. But just Sri Aurobindo said that you have to make the temple clean. The temple is the temple inside. So that means that constantly the aspiration cannot succeed unless it is accompanied pari passu by rejection of all that is negative, and everything is continuously surrendered to the divine. Thank you.
We'd like to thank all of you for being part of the session today, and we hope to see you in the next session. Thank you.